Hello and welcome. I'm Chris Braitch, and this is the Seen and Heard podcast, a conversational series. I am an emotional health and leadership coach and co-founder of the not-for-profit Seen and Heard, which supports those seeking healing, connection, and systemic change. My vision is to move myself and the world around me towards connection and compassion. And each week, I will connect with amazing guests who are on their journey to bring about meaningful change in their own lives and the world around them. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to the Seen and Heard podcast, a conversational series. Today, I have the great honour of being joined by the men involved Inside the Boys Club project. Inside the Boys Club is a short film and portrait confronting one of Britain's most hidden problems. Over 150,000 boys will be sexually abused in the UK this year. It takes over 20 years for men to speak up about it. Sane 7 Studio created a series of powerful 1-minute films and portraits in which 4 male survivors speak openly about the sexual abuse they experienced as boys, the silence that followed, and the healing that begins when men are finally heard. Those men are on this podcast today. Envisioned by creative strategist Dr. Marius Janciauskas and supported by forensic psychologist Dr. Naomi Murphy, the project tackled the unwritten rules of British masculinity that keep boys quiet for decades. The film addressed the cost of silence, the impact on adult mental health, and the growing need for safe spaces where men can speak without shame. Launched on International Men's Day, the campaign reached national audiences and sparked public debate about the scale of abuse and the urgency of listening to male survivors. Welcoming you men today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's really great. It's really great we've got this opportunity. And Dr. Naomi Murphy's been a huge supporter of Seen and Heard since we started. She's a wonderful, wonderful human being. She's doing good work out there. And so I'm just a little shout out to her for her part in this and helping to put us together. But with so many guests, I'm really blown away by the energy we've got here today, but I'm also going to have to be quite disciplined in how I sort of move around. So what I'm going to do is just introduce you one by one to the group so that podcast listeners can know a little bit about you, and then I'll come around and speak. So Daniel is a former military man and a survivor of severe childhood sexual abuse within an organised network. His early life was shaped by prolonged grooming, psychological control, and enforced dissociation perpetrated by his father and others. Despite the scale of this trauma, Daniel has dedicated his life to healing, both his own and that of others. By speaking openly about the mechanisms of abuse and the hidden realities survivors endure, he offers insight, solidarity, and hope. His story is one of extraordinary courage, reclamation, and transformation. Welcome, Daniel. So, second, Andy Woodward. Andy is a former professional footballer whose disclosure in 2016 exposed widespread abuse in British football and triggered Operation Hydrant, the largest safeguarding investigation in UK sporting history. His story, told in the BAFTA-nominated BBC drama Floodlights, broke decades of silence and changed global safeguarding conversations. He is the author of the award-nominated memoir Position of Trust and now works internationally in safeguarding, survivor advocacy, and institutional reform. Andy's mission is simple and uncompromising: survivor safety, accountability, and systemic change. Andy, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Raphael Viola. Raphael is a survivor of Catholic-run children's homes and the author of Stealing Lives, Systemic Abuse and Organised Crime. Taken from poverty in Glasgow and wrongly labelled by authorities, Raphael was placed in Croom Court and other institutions where he endured and witnessed extreme abuse. A key witness in national investigations, including ICSA, which is the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse in England and Wales, and major police operations, he has spent decades challenging powerful institutions, confronting leaders across the UK and even at the Vatican. Now in his 60s, Raphael continues to campaign for transparency, justice, and meaningful support for survivors. Welcome, Raphael.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Thank you. Much obliged. Thank you.
No, it's great. Really appreciate you being here. Yeah, thank you.
Great,
And
thank you.
last but not least, Toby Tarquin. Toby Twarkin spent most of his career in education, working in both state and independent schools in the UK and internationally. He became a housemaster in a senior boarding school and later served as head of 3 schools. Following early retirement due to ill health, major surgery, Toby was forced to confront long-buried abuse from his own school years. This awakening has led him to advocacy, therapy, and survivor support, and he is now a co-founder of Seen and Heard and brings decades of educational leadership to the work of safeguarding and survivor care. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you very much, Chris.
It's great to have you all here. I've stumbled my way through the intros and we can now talk freely. I can take off my reading glasses and then we can just relax and take a breath. So Inside the Boys Club is an amazing project, something we've been publicising via our newsletters. There's videos in there, there's beautiful portraits, there's stories. It really is an incredible piece of work. And what I'd like to do now is just move around the group and just see how it came about, how it was for you, and kind of what are your hopes for it. But first, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Daniel. So, the project itself, what brought you to it and how it went.
Well, it's quite simple to answer what brought me to it, as it was my good friend Andy who brought me in. We'd met as fellow survivors online and had supported each other over distance for a while. And he invited me to join the project, which I was really excited and happy to do. And my thoughts with it, I really hope we can change the conversation and raise awareness around childhood sexual abuse and particularly around male survivors. And just for men to feel less alone, for men to understand the nature of such abuse and how it affects us, but also for there to be hope that healing and becoming more yourself again, to be less weighed down by the trauma that you carry, that is possible, and that there are examples here. There's at least 4 examples here to prove that.
Yeah, beautiful words, Daniel, and thank you to Andy for bringing you towards this project. Really powerful. What was it like for you going through the process of the actual, stuff in the studios, the recording, because always with this stuff, it brings our own wounding up, our own kind of challenges. So what did you face into doing this?
I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Zoolander.
yeah.
there was just having to pose and be in front of the camera and then having to do things with your hands and trying to, it was an experience. But Sane and Marius are just amazing, beautiful, beautiful people. Dr. Naomi is again an inspiring and beautiful woman, and the 4 of us. There was going to be 5. I feel there's a real sense of brotherhood between us. So, to be honest, for me personally, it didn't bring up that much stuff. I was just eager to get it done and just was really, if there was an anxiety, it was just wanting it to really honour the cause and honour the purpose sufficiently that the message can be spread effectively and potently.
Beautiful words, Daniel. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like it was well held, and often, when things are well held, we feel safe to sort of be ourselves and go through it. So, bless you for being here, and thank you for your contribution to this. What do you hope for it? We talked a little bit before we started about this being picked up, this being talked about as a national conversation, and the challenges of. It's a really sort of inconvenient truth, and people don't want to go near it. So, what's been your sense since the launch and before that in your other work around this?
I think there's just a bit of an invisible barrier that we bump up against when we talk about abuse and men, and we talk about maybe reasons that men may be acting in a particular way, and that actually a lot of the time trauma is behind men's behaviour if it's not as we would wish it to be, I suppose. And I just hope for a more compassionate world and for more compassion towards men and more understanding. And but not only from society at large, but just on an individual basis. I think men are so good at locking stuff down and burying it and just cracking on and just forging your way ahead. But to take a more holistic view and to understand how deeply our past can affect our present, I think can be really powerful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, my vision is to move myself and the world around me towards connection and compassion, and try and bring that into all my work, because it certainly was my experience that those were commodities that weren't required when I was young, in growing up and things like that. They weren't part of the vocabulary. So yeah, I really honour your work to bring that through. Thank you. And I'd love to move across, Andy. So just similarly for you, how was coming into this project? Obviously, you spent a lot of your career kind of on the pitch, on the public stage, so maybe not so surprising to be in front of a camera for you. But how was the process?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey, to be honest with you. Back in 2016, I was the, as they call it, whistleblower. I don't like that word, but it went global, and I had a vision then, like every single one of us that now we've come together. All of us individually had the same vision, and that was to help survivors to come out, to speak out, which did happen. And unfortunately on that journey, I was so naive that I put a lot of trust in individuals. I put a lot of trust in the institutes. I put a lot of trust in organisations that I felt would support and encourage this. And I had like a long vision with it. But unfortunately, when you put your trust in people that you feel that are going to help, that are going to get on this road, unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. There was the independent inquiry of football. It didn't deliver the truths, and I could see that as it was going on through the years. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I've been through like everybody else. It's probably one of the toughest barriers to break when it comes down to child abuse in boys and men, because for generations, if we look at men and the way that we've all been brought up by our parents, but their parents and their parents and their parents. And it even goes right the way up to the very hierarchy in the royals. What it is establishments to say that men don't talk and you are told what to do. And unfortunately with that comes an awful lot of barriers now when we're in 2025. Because although they want to talk about men's mental health, well, how many sufferers are no longer here because of abuse as a child? A lot of trauma comes from childhood, and there's a lot of addictions come from childhood. Well, it's about then peeling them plasters off that have been put on by whatever institutes or whatever organisations. And it's not about blame. It's about now let's look forward. And this is about like us coming together in rather than one individual doing that. So how it came about was that I'd been on a very, very dark path where I'd suffered a lot from revealing what I'd revealed. And it took a long time for recovery from that, because you feel let down. You feel like you've been destroyed. But I kept my faith and I kept my hope. And I just knew that I believe in the universe, and I believe in things happen for a reason. And then out of nowhere, I'd been connected with Dr. Naomi Murphy, and we'd become quite good friends, as in like what I wanted to achieve from it. And then Sane came from nowhere. She was going to just take a photograph of me, and then we ended up chatting. And although her campaigns have been for women, she really understood the need for this. And she said, I want to get on board. And then how it developed from there was, I'd connected with Daniel and we'd been chatting. And then Raphael, through various connections. And as they say about the universe, how this has become the connections. And then Toby as well. And then there was Joseph, who unfortunately couldn't come. But when you get a group of men that you trust. Now, I have ultimate trust in these men because we're all on the same page. Unfortunately, 9 years ago, some of those men were so damaged that they couldn't see what my vision was. So when they're damaged and you've just spoken out, you become very vulnerable to institutes and organisations, and they got taken down paths. But now we're here together. It's about speaking out, but more importantly, it's about future and how we can do that methodically. And it, you know, when we first launched it, it went out to 1,000 distributed media sources, and only came back was GB News. So when you look at the barriers and walls that you're against, you're not against them. You want to embrace them. You want to collaborate as like-minded souls, as they say. But unfortunately, the world that we live in, and especially the UK, I think it's a very, very tough subject that they don't want to really bring back out again, because we've had the campaigns for women, but when it's come down to men, it just seems to get suppressed and shut down. It can't even open up now. And I was fortunate because of what I did. They didn't see me coming, and it blew up. But now this, you know, unfortunately, it's a tough battle. They will embrace men's mental health, but when it comes to child abuse and boys and men, it's for some reason there's a huge barrier there.
Thank you so much, Andy. Powerful words, and yeah, bless you for your amazing work since 2016 with all you've been through, for your life. But in that process of, you know, so don't know the term, but this blew up. And then, you know, the kind of the shock waves then that carried you along, and now really taking ownership with these other men. And for me, the kind of you know, men are best when they're in supportive groups. It's how we evolved, you know, hundreds of thousands of years in hunter-gatherer groups. It works. And whether it's, you know, men's sheds, or it's, you know, group men's groups, or it's you know, Band of Brothers, all these amazing organizations out there. It's been very powerful for me as well.
Yeah, and there's so many organisations that were set up after what I did, but for some reason I was isolated, which I had to accept. It's a tough one to accept, but I think it was a learning journey to start with, because I don't think the world was ready. I don't think anybody was really quite ready for, you know, it's taken time for a lot of men's charities to be that are now out there, which are all great, don't get me wrong. But what you tend to find with a lot of charities is that they want to own it themselves. And I think that's what's unique about this, because it's not about us owning, it's about collaborating and growing together. It's like, say, that tribal instinct of men together, where they feel safe. It's more about safety. And that's the biggest issue that men have, is they don't trust or feel safe to speak out because of the implications that might come back at them. And I think that's, and there's certainly the manly alpha male is still out there that doesn't want to ruin their reputation, as the CEOs out there, you name it, that have suffered right the way to the very top. But they don't want to, I'm not saying ego, but they don't want to open up to that. Yeah. And that's what this is about. And you know, it's early days, and the hurdles are there already. They're not barriers. We'll knock them down. But it's a case of time. It's a case of just like, take each day at a time and keep stepping forward. And no matter what, we will, you know, generate. It's not about the past. It's not about the negatives. We know about all that. This is about now. This is about us four men that are, you know, we're not getting any younger, but we're still here together, and that's powerful. And when men see that, and you grow, and if you are able in groups, if it's managed right with the right support, there's nothing better than this. It outweighs any therapy that you can have. Any therapy.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Really powerful. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, just really seeing that, you know, vulnerability is a superpower. It's not a weakness, but that's a real change out there. So thank you for your words, and I'd love to open it up to Raphael. Yeah. So you're in the introduction, you've been campaigning for a long time. You've been making connections for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Amazing journey. How was this particular project for you?
Oh, it was amazing. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to amplify our voices. That was through Pat Mills. He's a friend of he's done podcasts for Naomi, and I've also done a podcast with Naomi. Brilliant lady, Andy says she's fantastic, and Shane and Maurice, all of us. But I was just so thankful that I had this opportunity there to get our voices across. Now, I come from a different, bit of a different background, like children's homes that I was involved with. Now, a lot of these children's, 5 children's homes that I went to, it's in these children's homes, you have to survive, you have to be tough in them children's homes. And as the years goes on, like, we've lost so many. There was thousands and thousands of children's homes in the 60s and the 70s, mostly for boys. The majority of them were for boys, and a lot of them got abused. As I said, I went to 5 children's homes, and every one of them notorious. They've all been in the national press. They've all been Operation Quail, Operation Greenlight, blah, 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 the whole 5 of them. So when you're in that situation, especially in a children's home as well, you've got to be tough in these children's homes. If you're not tough, it's a weakness. Like and it follows you all the way through through life. Because I come from like rough council estates, so it's very hard for me to explain. But as you're growing up, I was classed as severely retarded. I was misdiagnosed, so I didn't want. I went to a special school, ESP school, which is for it's not used now, there was, but on my files I was classed severely retarded. That was the word that they used in them days. So I didn't even tell my family, my brothers, my siblings, that I was at a special school, because I get ridiculed after them. I know, because in them days it was just normal, well, not normal, but it was like that'd be called a simpleton. Where's Raphael? Or he's in the loony bin, or he's in the nuthouse. That was the word that they used in them days. So I had to protect myself from them, from that, not telling my family. Then, when I left the children's home, I took an overdose to get me out of the children's homes. Nearly killed myself, 21 volumes. So that released me from Croom Court. Then they tried to put me into a special school, for special needs school, ESP school, in my district, where I should have went to a comprehensive school. Now, my friends seen me getting on this bus to go to special school, then I get ridiculed again. They'd know. Then I'd be called names. I wouldn't find no. It would have destroyed my life, to tell you the truth. So after that, I couldn't tell anybody about that. I live in a tough neighbourhood, so it's very hard. I couldn't say, "Oh, I've been abused," blah blah blah. No, because as you say, man up. We don't want to hear about it. Then it seems like you're a weakness, and if you're a weakness, then you have to grow up with that. You're not classed as one of them sort of things. You get ridiculed and that. So that was that part. That's what I had to grow up with. Not telling my family, my siblings that I was at a special school. My parents knew it, but I kept it from my siblings. And these kids from these children's homes, when they grow up, they're like myself. Like they're from deprived backgrounds. A lot of us were. Like we can't tell people. Like, oh well, we've got abused, because then, as I said, it's a sign of weakness. Grow up here. Like, well, we don't want to know. There's still a taboo. So then, as you go older into adulthood, it's like a cancer. This is why we don't come out until 20 to 30 years later, because it eats you away. Like, no, it is a cancer. It's some sort of, it's a disease that with your trauma, and and a lot of us, we suffer from not just mental health, but physical health, because it's trauma that we received as children. Because we're too busy fighting the trauma than fighting, or getting nurtured into adulthood. All these nightmares and the trauma, it stops us developing. So at a later age, we all suffer with heart disease, alcohol, drugs. This is the one from the children's home. I still see them down there. Well, most of them are all dead, to tell you the truth now. They suffer from alcoholism, drug abuse, homelessness, suicidal, mental health, right? The list goes on and on and on. But nobody wants to address it, because I've been there, I've been for help over the years, but you tick the boxes. So what brings me now, I want to inspire people, because I've been there, I've got the drum car, I've got the t-shirt, like, and I know, like, no, I know exactly, in my mind, how it can be fixed, like, but they ain't the tools there to be fixed. The government have got to take part of this, and the media have got to get our stories out there, so they can be changed. But as Andy said, they don't want to know. No, even with the independent inquiry into child sex abuse, we've got little publicity all over it. £250 million inquiry, and what happened in it? It was in one day, then it was disappeared. So we're not getting the attention that we deserve. But as it for this campaign, I'm really, really thankful for this campaign, because it is going to bring awareness out. And yeah, that's my wee story anyway. How we have to deal with mental health growing up into adulthood. Like, no, all the tough. You grow up here, don't want to know. But we've got to break our silence. We've got to break that taboo. Like, no, and as you said, kids, I went to the council station. I tell my pal too, people are listening now. People are listening who I didn't think they were going to be listening. Like, no, like, as I said, grown men today cry when I talk to people. Like, no, macho men and all that. They understand now, like, no, and they do listen. They want to listen, and I know we're getting our stories out there, but we've got to have the media. The media's got the government, especially the government. They don't care. I don't think they care about boys. They've got the Justice Secretary, not the Justice Secretary, Jess Phillips, the safeguarding for women and girls. What about men? Like, no, men and boys. Like, there's no safeguarding for us. But I'm not taking anything away from the women and children. No, they deserve it. Women and girls, 100%, like the Titanic. Women and children first. Like, no, that's in my view. But if they're in the room for the men, they can get on. But they ain't getting no room. Nobody's amplifying their voices, especially the government. Like, no, and this has had to change. Like, no. I've been in contact with MPs. Things need to change from a higher level. It has to change at a higher level, and the media has to take notice for what we're saying. I just said 150,000 children a year, boys, get abused every year in this country. But there's more. There's more than that.
Thank you, Raphael. I really appreciate that. Yeah, what you're saying there is very, very powerful. Particularly the sort of man up, don't talk about it. Boys don't cry. Grow a pair. We'll come on to Toby, because his and I's experience in boarding schools, very, very different from boys' homes from council estates. It's the opposite end of the socio-demographic spectrum, if you like. But we grew up with the same mentality: be tough, bury your feelings. You fit in. It's survive or die in institutions growing up. So let's move to Toby and really hear about that. But really honour your work, Raphael, and your energy behind this. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
So Toby, it's see, we're pretty close. We worked together on the Seen and Heard project. Your story, your journey has always been inspirational to me. But just tell us a little bit about you coming into this project and your experience and what you hope for it to achieve.
Okay, well, on a superficial level, I came into the project because Naomi came and spoke to you, searching for some different boarding school or something like that. So I didn't go searching for a project, but I'm very privileged and very pleased that they invited me to go and get involved. So thank you, guys, and thank you all the other people who aren't here. I thought, when I got into all of this at the beginning, I only knew, I suppose initially I didn't really fully know my own experience, but that's what I sort of came in with was self-centered. My experience, this wasn't good, blame a school. Then I found online, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people. There's an online group called Boarding School Survivors or something. And so many people from so many schools and so many age groups. And the really upsetting thing for me, having worked as a teacher in the system, was to see people still at schools contacting that site. So people in the 2020s in boarding schools now, and their experiences are sort of not only recognised. I mean, I could feel I could rewind 45 years and be in their school and putting up with so nothing's changed, despite legislation, despite central heating, carpets appearing. On a more profound level, you just said, "Oh, we're opposite ends of the spectrum," to Raphael. But I would say, yes, we are. It's such opposite ends of the spectrum. We're almost meeting at the other end, because the fact of the matter is that we were all, anyone who went to a boarding school was also brought up in a children's home with adults who didn't love them, didn't care about them. We were on our own. Even the cost was more or less the same on an annual basis. Doesn't matter, the cost of Eton and the average children's home now is within a couple of £1,000s of each other. It's the same cost. Just because my parents forked it out to buy a privilege, they ended up buying exactly the same thing they could have got for me by leaving me in the street, I suppose. And the experience, unfortunately, was pretty much the same. And that for me, has been the biggest thing about becoming part of this select group of people, was discovering how things are hidden behind different scenarios. People think, poor Raphael, yes, he had a really bad start in life, and lucky Toby, he had tens of thousands of pounds spent on him by wealthy parents, nothing to be sorry for him for. And that then links me nicely to Andy. What a lucky boy, being, picked out at a young age to train for football in a special place. Who could complain? That's a dream of hundreds of thousands of boys every year, probably. So what a lucky boy, nothing to be sorry for him for. And it's that. And then for all of us, they're men, nothing to be sorry for them for. They're not vulnerable, my ladies. And that's society's image of all of us is, it's brought up on the men don't cry. A thing that all our mums said to us when we were 2 and just starting to walk, and the first time we fell down and cried from the shock. I'd be willing to place bets none of us will remember from that age, that our mums said, don't cry, dear, boys don't. First thing. And we're taught that all the way through. So we don't. And society doesn't let us, because what sort of man goes around in the streets crying? You lock him up. You don't feel sorry for him. You just think how wet, how pathetic. And that's gone on for too long. Because at the same time, men are being told they should show emotions. Men in the 2020 should be emotional, but not that one. And how you change it is the big question. We're all trying to do something. If the media will give us a voice, it's not a very exciting story. That's our problem. It isn't as, I suppose, it doesn't generate as much sort of passing traffic in terms of news as if we were all women coming together to do it. And maybe because men aren't good at it, maybe because other men don't want to listen, society isn't ready maybe for the story. I think we have to make society ready for the story, which they're probably not yet. But how you do that is beyond me.
Well, thank you, Toby. Yeah, really appreciate your thoughts there. Ultimately, the only way is not waiting for anyone to come and save us, because no one's going to come and change. They won't come and rescue us. It has to be a people power. It has to be a movement, and that starts with conversations and connections like the ones you men have made, and that is so important. So yeah, I really honour all of you for being part of this project. It's a great piece of work. And thank you for sharing that, a little bit about your stories. So I'd like to just open up now, kind of, one of the things that was in the intro just remembering sort of numbers and things like that. But it's around, on average, sort of 20 years or more than 20 years they found in ICSA for people to come forward about sexual abuse. And I think one of the ones I remember was only 1 in 9 ever come forward, which, you know, places what we're seeing really is the tip of the iceberg of this huge trauma. And of course, we know from trauma impacts physical health, emotional health. It breaks communities and families down, and it is a great wound, you know, for society. And we know from our schools, Toby, that many of these very, very wounded young boys become wounded men who go on to politics, law, the very sort of pillars of society. And so we have a societal model that is built by very damaged young men often. So there is big work to be doing, but the starting to speak is important. But why then, you know, just to open this up, anyone who wants to take it as a question, we've talked a bit about boys don't cry, vulnerability, opening up, but is there something particularly that keeps men silent for longer, for a long time?
I would say with all of those things. I'm not aware of anything beyond those things, but the combination is pretty lethal. You know, society isn't ready for it. Most men aren't ready for it. That 9 out of 10, 90% of people who don't ever come forward, you know, a lot of them will be in positions of huge responsibility. Nobody wants to admit vulnerability. If you're not ready to come forward, you're not going to admit it even to yourself. And without knowing it, I would suggest that you feel threatened by people who do come forward. So maybe if you're in charge of the news programme, you're in charge of the government, wherever, you will not encourage that to come forward. In fact, you might try and stop it coming forward because it threatens your own sort of false stability. So I would put that as the final point.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come in on that?
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, Daniel, but just quickly, what Toby said there is so true, because, you know, even after what I did, I've actually spoken to known reporters and known people in the media that have one-to-one told me it happened to them, but they ain't going to speak about it because of their reputational sort of arena and what they're in, and who, if they were to speak about that within certain organisations, would not be looked on well. And also the magnitude of it is, after I did it, everywhere I went, from a talk to a meeting to whatever, I had a queue long of men that wanted to speak to me and say to me, Andy, it happened to me. Andy, it happened to me. So when the numbers that they've come up with, you can times that by 1,000. And this is globally. This isn't just in this country. This is globally. So that fundamental, when you actually, the statistics say this, but the actual numbers say up there. So that's why this is the biggest one to crack, because we've got the sex trafficking stuff with the Epstein and the Royals, but this is young boys and men globally.
Thank you.
Now that's powerful.
Andy, that's so important to point that out, that this is very much the tip of the iceberg, and this is a global issue. You know, whether it's in home, whether it's in institutions, in football, scouts, church, it just goes on and on and on. And ultimately, institutions will only ever serve themselves. It's how power structures work. So we need some very serious safeguarding legislation and awareness and trauma awareness to come in, because if we leave it to institutions, they will continue to serve themselves, and men and women and boys and girls will continue to be harmed. So thank you. Daniel, you were going to come in there.
Yeah, and I guess this touches on just this being the tip of the iceberg. So what I would say from my perspective is another reason that men don't speak out is because there are very sophisticated predators out there that know how to invoke disassociation in their victims. So normally when the abuse is started from a very young age, and normally with particular practices that they tend to follow, it's possible to make your victim forget that they've actually been abused, and it gets completely repressed. The mind splits in under the stress and the duress of everything, and they may remember 20, 30, 40 years later at some random trigger. But I think this is another really important thing to consider, that there's some horrifyingly sophisticated predators that are very, very good at doing the terrible things that they do.
Thank you, Daniel. We had ex-detective John Wedger on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So a big campaigner in this area, and just hearing the scale of the and sophistication of the networks, of that abuse young boys, young girls out there. I'm not surprised that there are these very sophisticated setups that you talk about that will gaslight and minimize people, and we certainly see it at Seen and Heard. About 35% on our confidential survey were seriously physically or sexually abused at their schools. That is an enormous percentage. That is a frightening percentage, So the tip of the iceberg thing is so important for anyone listening. Thank you. And something I just wanted to talk about. We've touched on kind of what happens when you come forward. There's the fallout. There's a lot of people not coming forward because of the impacts on the their job, their profile, the world around them, etc. But let's talk about the sort of machine that's supposed to help people. When you come forward, when a crime has been committed and you've been harmed and you come forward, could be 20, 30 years later, whatever it is, the bit that follows next. Just opening this up, has anyone got anything to say about the process of reporting abuse and how it's handled legally, so police and courts?
Yeah, go on, Raphael.
Yeah, thank you. Raphael, then Andy.
Sorry, Andy. Yeah, I just want to say this. Just not me who got abused at these children's homes where I was at. My younger brother he also went to these two of them, St Gilbert's and Internal Assessment Centre. Now, he had massive problems all his life. We buried him on Friday. His funeral was on Friday. He was homeless, drug abuse all his life, completely wrecked. Now, he went to the police about 5 or 6 years ago, and they took involved in Operation Quail and Operation Camellia, the two children's homes he was at. Now, he's made statements, witness statements to the police. You don't care. Nothing happens. Nothing happened. Nothing happens. He didn't get no help. The police knew he was homeless. He's been on drugs all his life, mental health problems. Right? No. So I've just said that to somebody else yesterday. When we come forward, right? No, nothing happens. No. So it stops us by going forward. It stops survivors going forward to reporting it. Because I've spoken to many survivors on the streets, and because I've been on the streets myself. I've been there. As I said, I've T-shirt, alcohol, drugs, the whole lot, homelessness, and I still talk to the homeless now. And they tell me there's no help. There's no help. They've been to the police. They go to the thing. They just tick the boxes. They're just numbers. But there's not enough help out there for us. Today, as I said, what happens on Friday, my young brother's funeral. Now, what you're saying, it takes people long, how long it takes people to come out, like 20, 30 years later. As I said before, it is like a cancer. Like, this is when we come out, it gets so much in the end, like he just explodes. It had to come out, because you can't bottle it up. We've bottled it up so long, it's been suppressed for so long, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, maybe a little trigger. Then my trigger was, for me to speak out, was I was sitting in the house with my two young daughters, and the news come on, and they said, "Have you been abused at St Gilbert's school with Christian Brothers? Please contact the police or the BBC." So I did, but what's come out of it? Nothing. There's still no help from nobody. Like, no, we don't get addressed for it. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares. As it says, what's the use of yours going to the police? Like, no, when there's no help. Like, no social help. No, as it says, you go to seek help. You're ticking the boxes. You just tick the boxes. Like, and I've asked lots of survivors, well, is there any help what we're doing? Like, the help that they get to go in the hospital. The survivors now, most of the survivors who are on the streets, they won't even go to the hospitals no more. But what they're saying now that the hospitals are too violent. Like, no, they prefer to sleep in the streets. Like, no, and I see that a lot. And I said, is there anybody who can help you? No, nobody can help you. They put you in a hostel, this hostel here, like King's Cross or somewhere. Like, no, it's a we won't sleep there. It's a mattress on the floor. Like, no, they get scared in case you get robbed or sexually abused or beaten up or like, no. So a lot of the survivors are on the streets. But people will have to look at these survivors, the people on the streets now, and think of the bigger picture. Why are they on the streets? Right? No, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. Britain don't care. Britain, no. I found that you can go to the police, you can go to social services, you can go to the hospital, you see mental health officials. I've done all that. I've been to the police. No, five statements. I made 5 different children's homes. Well, what's come out of it? Nothing. Where's our redress? Nothing. And no, we've got nothing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about us. And this is what I want. This is what I'm fighting for. They should care, and it should come from the top. And no, it has to come from the top. Right? No, and the media. And this is what I'm annoyed about. Like, no, they won't help us. They won't help us. There's no help out there for us at all.
Thank you, Raphael. Yeah.
Just on that, Chris. So strategically, I was in the police force for 13 years. So I know how the justice system works, and I know, being as a police officer, the amount of files that you are under as a constable, as a detective. I've done both. Now, the hierarchy at the very top, what they have is they have strategic levels, what they have to produce to the government. And it is all a numbers game. But unfortunately, when it comes down to such a delicate subject as child sex abuse, I've dealt with a lot of cases with that, and also the case with Barry Bennell. Now, there was over 200 victims with that, and they only decided to try on 12. Now, you've got to do the maths there, and you've got 180 odd that never got justice, that never came out in the media or anything like that. So those that are making these strategic decisions on, what is justice, it's more, and I even spoke to the High Court judge, because the bail date was set for months and months ahead. And I said, well, what about the victims that are actually sat at home right now that have to wait that period of time? Now, that's where there's a huge problem from the justice system, from a victim in all cases. But when you're talking about child trauma and child sex abuse and rapes, you're talking about a serious offence here. So the priority should be, in terms of these offences, that they have to do more around ring fencing the victims, because they need specialist help, and they don't give anything. Victim support don't do anything to help a victim. More and more people were encouraging to speak out, which, once you've got it off your chest, and once you've said, yes, it happened to me, that's just the start of the process. But when you come into the police and you're actually giving a statement, and then you sat at home waiting for months and months on end, there has to be some change in legislation with certain offences where the strategic, holistic solution around that has to be focused on a victim. It's okay saying, a police officer giving somebody a call saying, I've got no news for you. They press a button on their computer and it says victim called. But there has to be some specialised organisation within that remit that has to give that specialised support, so that victim, even though the judicial system won't change for quite some time, but at least there's something in there that can give these victims some kind of hope because they lose hope, they lose faith in the police, and it's the police because they react to something. You see it all with big cases. Are they proactive? No. If there's a major incident, they react and put all the police on the street to say, we are making the place safe. It's already happened. So when we're talking about child abuse, well, come on. I can talk hours and hours about this, but do you understand that concept that is what's wrong? That is where there's a problem with victims, and we're losing them day by day by day that are committing suicide because they're not getting justice.
Yeah, I hear you, Andy. I hear you very strongly. I think Seen and Heard and Third Sector, other charities are a member of Survivors Trust and a number of others. And the Third Sector is totally overwhelmed by providing support to people who are going through this journey, because it's not there. The waiting list, mental health waiting list, are 2 years. The physical health waiting list is probably about the same, because you say that the mind and the body are breaking down at the same time, and this has to be recognised. But ultimately, it's the top that needs to change. Say that there are offices. Sorry.
And just really quickly there on that, Chris. So imagine if you got like-minded people with specialised people that are there within a group in a safe environment that where they've not felt safe at home, but you're able to then speak about not your case, because you can't discuss the case, but you can let off your emotional feelings and how you're feeling going through this case, that there's a professional there as well as like-minded souls. It's not a one-to-one, but there's a group of people together in a safe environment. You walk away from that feeling hope, faith, because of where people are at within their stages of process. It's gathering in numbers. Do you know that movement where like-minded people can then have hope that they're not on their own and they're going through the judicial process the same?
Yeah. Thank you.
Being left on your own as a victim.
Thank you, Andy. It's so important. So we connect people to lots of those sort of survivor groups. They are paramount. And just with the interest of time and things, with the time we've got today, actually, you've opened a door there to something that's very powerful and important, which is what has worked for you on this journey as a group, as far as improving your physical, emotional health, or what we need to have more of out there. If people are listening who have been affected, what are the things that they can try and do to support themselves and to find help? So I'm just going to open that up, particularly Toby, I know you've got to go very soon. Daniel, they haven't come in for a bit. So just opening that conversation up.
It's difficult. I mean, I think Andy's got the nail on the head with the time business. And then there's the can of worms that is called Criminal Injuries Compensation Scheme. Well, all I can say is yes. 18 months and waiting to even hear anything. I had the acknowledged email, we've got your application. Well, you can't contact them. There's no one you can speak to see what's going on. You can't speed things up. As far as I can see, well, I've been told, indeed, that neither can the police contact them. Nobody can contact them. So do they not think that maybe that's actually making things worse? But you can't even talk to them, so it's a waste of breath. But that's my personal gripe before I storm off in a fit of bad temper.
Thank you, Toby. And just so that when you do come off the call, your path to speaking out, to healing, because this is so important in all of this. Ultimately, we exist to support people through this process so that they can bring back some parts of themselves that they were lost, and they can live a fulfilling life for themselves, their family, community. Right? That's what it's all about. Yeah. Acknowledgement, justice, healing. So what's your healing side, Toby?
My healing is helping to build Seen and Heard, to be honest.
Yeah, we just lost Toby, sadly, just as he was about to deliver the... no problem, but I open that one to Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. It's really a double-edged sword that bites both ways when it comes to disclosure and it comes to speaking out, and which is an essential part of healing, I would say. So I would suggest that when you tell your family from my experience and from talking with other survivors, it's about 50-50. Either they'll be supportive or they'll kind of turn against you, minimize it, ridicule, make you wrong, that kind of thing. So that's from talking to tens and tens of survivors. So no quantifiable study, I'm afraid, but that's just my experience. So you've got to be discerning in how you talk about it and who you talk about it with. But it is essential to talk about it. And if you can find somebody safe that you can start sharing these memories, the experiences, the horror of it, I think that is a really, really positive thing. I think professional support is really good. I'm sure we would all recommend different things, but I've had a lot of success with somatic therapy and with somatic experiencing, which I really, really rate, that's working through the body, that's discharging the trauma and allowing you to kind of come back to some kind of equilibrium. So there's that, there's talking about it, there's some kind of therapy, and then there's studying and reading up about it. So the more you can learn about it, the more you can learn about the phenomena that surrounds it, and the more you can hopefully get other people to be educated on it so they can support you. I think that can be really powerful. And then really the last thing I would say is just connecting with like-minded people. So actually survivors are very good at understanding other survivors, generally speaking. So if you can find other survivors to connect with, there can be a great amount of solace and just something to rest into in knowing you're not alone, and in sharing your story and hearing others' stories and offering mutual support.
Daniel, thank you so much. I noticed Toby's just jumped back on and he's got to go. But I want to come back on a couple of things you said there, Daniel. But Toby, and I know you're rushing, but you were just about to deliver the hammer blow of enlightenment. So
Enlightenment was being part of building Seen and Heard. I mean, that is literally, because I respond by doing. I am very good at sitting feeling sorry for myself, but I like to change that. And my way of changing is to do. And so, it's been great to find you, Chris, and Andrew. And we've built Seen and Heard. Seen and Heard is here. It ain't going away. That sometimes feels so it might. And, that to me has been the best thing, because even if I never get healed, it might help some other people. And that's by itself, a living legacy is worthwhile. So, that for me has been the healing, mind you. The workload's been bigger than I expected. I know it makes looking at being a headmaster quite easy, but
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Toby. I know you've got to run to the point.
Great to see you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your contribution. So, Daniel, sorry, Andy.
I was just saying back to Toby, and also I think also, Chris, really quickly on that, what Daniel touched on, and it is about healing, and there is so many alternative therapies that are out there that aren't publicly spoken about. There are so many, and I've had that many therapists over 20 odd years, and I've got to say that unfortunately they're not brought out there in the public domain, a lot of these, but there are some amazing techniques that, you can release trauma more than you think. And that's something that with this campaign that I'm connected to a lot of these different holistic solutions. And I think that's once we start to grow with this together. And I think that I keep saying that word together, because unless we do it together and that togetherness grows, then all you have is splinter groups that are making an impact on a smaller level, which is all great, don't get me wrong. But it is not going to even make a small dent on society. That's a fact. And also, lastly, is that this all starts in childhood. This is all a learned behaviour. Trauma is learned, and our paths of life are learned. We try and survive the best way we can. we're in our relationships, you know, codependency, alcohol, you name it, is all a learned behaviour from children. So the government and institutes and everybody else really need to have a hard look at this. They don't want to go there with the educational side of it, but it's imperative that children are educated properly, not just ticking a box like the usual organisations, but properly, fundamentally put it in some curriculum that children are fully loaded up with the tools just in case that happens. Doesn't matter how much safeguarding we've got there, as Daniel referred to, they are more sophisticated now than ever before. So it is there. So that's all I wanted to say to you in regards to that. It's about togetherness, that holistically we can make a difference for those that are damaged, but also preventative for those younger generations.
Thank you, Andy. That's so powerful. So it's just a couple.
I'm like a politician, don't I?
Yeah, but I loved it. There's a couple of things. I mean, trauma therapy is my thing. That's my day job. And you know what Daniel was saying about somatic work, so working with the body, things like emotional freedom techniques, somatic experiencing. Ultimately, you know, the trauma is held in the body, in the energy systems. The body keeps the score, as the great book says, by Bessel van der Kolk. And so there are these incredible practices out there, and bringing them into schools, bringing them into parenting, coaching early on in life. Having a trauma-informed society is our hill to live and die on as our generation. And the UNICEF head of children's advocacy, Ben Perks, was on our podcast. His brilliant book, Trauma Proofs, just out. He's basically said that it's our generation's vaccine, it's our generation's war effort that previous generations had. It's ours to create a trauma-informed society and improve that. Because once you get it, you know, the evidence is there that ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, are the biggest predeterminant for addiction, criminality, early death, all these things. And it's irrespective of background, gender, religion, any of that stuff. ACEs affect everybody. And that is our work, is to bring that togetherness around that conversation. So thank you so much for those points. Raphael, I just wanted to open it up. Anything around what's worked for you as far as coming to terms with things, healing? And also just wanted to note, thank you for sharing about your brother. My heart is with you and your family. And
thank you.
Very, very sad to hear about his passing. So thank you for sharing that.
It's okay. My part of healing was I was involved with the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. I was a co-participant of that inquiry. Before that, I was part of the Truth Project. I got approached by a lawyer. I thought I was going to be involved with this inquiry for change. No, I thought it was amazing being a part of it, so I could help bring change. But there was no change in that inquiry. No, I made it quite clear. So I became a whistleblower because a lot of things were stepped up in that inquiry. And my journey was to expose it, not just expose the inquiry, but to get my story out, because we were silenced at the inquiry. We were told to have a voice, we were silenced. So I wrote a book. And now I go around Europe with my book. And to be honest, when I talk to people, there's so many. I didn't believe, everybody who I talk to, they know somebody, their family, their friends, or they know somebody. It's like they say 1 in 3 in cancer. When you talk to somebody, they'll know somebody. When I speak to some people now on the streets, promoting my book, they know the family or somebody else. But that's given me my healing, because we wasn't believed. And when there wasn't, nobody, they still don't believe us. The Catholic Church, they've turned their back on us. I've been to the Vatican twice. They've closed the door on me. They don't want to talk to me. The RSSL, the safeguarding, they don't want to know. They're still protecting, these organisations are still protecting themselves. So my book has inspired me to go out to talk to people. And I do, every day I talk to people, and you'd be surprised how many people understand and want to help, and it's awareness. Like when I tell people, I know they're going to tell somebody else. It's about awareness, and that's my healing. It's talking to people and say, look, this is the book, this is what happens, they can read my story, they can read about the inquiry, they can read about my personal my journey, and I don't have nobody's ever said, oh, we don't want to know or anything like that, but you got one or two. But majority of people nowadays, they want to listen. 10, 15 years ago, when I first started this campaign, they went, oh, no, it was taboo. But they're breaking that silence now. We're breaking the circle. I can see it breaking. I can see, like, we're chipping away. And we are getting heard now. And we are not alone now. Because I know it. Because I'm on the front line. As I said, I speak to the homelessness, the survivors. I meet so many survivors. I speak, so I can see a change, but there's not a bigger change. It's not. It's small. There is a small change, and that is my healing. It's by going out there, promoting my book, and talking to people, and bringing awareness, and it makes me feel good because I know people are listening now. They wasn't listening before, but people are listening. They're beginning to listen, but it's okay. The people are listening. It's the establishment. They have to listen. The Catholic Church, they've got to listen. The government, they've got to listen. Our MPs, they've got to listen. The media, they've got to listen. The people are listening, but we can't get it out there. Like we can't get out there. We can't get, and and they are with us. The people are with us. They are with us. I know that. I feel it. I'm, as I said, every day I'm on the streets. I'm on the streets, front line, and I know. I do see a change. Yeah. I do see a change. I do a little change. Not a small change, but at least there is a change. But not from the government and not from the Catholic Church. They don't change. These organisations, they don't want to change. No. They don't want to change. They're still protecting themselves. The survivors coming, they don't care about survivors.
Thank you, Raphael. Yeah, no, I really hear you there. So, I'll just come a quick summary, Daniel, I'll come over. But what I'm hearing there is, there is good help out there. Look in different places, somatic work, alternative therapies, ask around, third sector support, get some help. Groups, the power of the group, particularly for men's groups, men's work, survivor connections where you can be heard and say something. You men have all stood up, see something, say something, report it, get your story out there, whether it's a book, a podcast or whatever, but this will start to become a movement. So really hearing those things. And Daniel, anything to add into that?
Yeah, just to elaborate on a point that Andy said a while ago, and this is something I believe very strongly. Healing is possible, but you've got to take responsibility for it. And the solutions that are provided by the system are not always the best solutions. So you do need to look outside the box at holistic alternative therapies, I would suggest. And two excellent books, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, and another one I'd recommend is Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, which is about somatic experiencing and somatic therapy. So but the more you can go into that, the more you can learn, the more you can seek your own healing with utmost devotion, then the more you're going to find healing. So it is possible, but you've got to take responsibility and you've got to move towards that with everything that you have.
Thank you, Daniel.
Lastly, Chris, just really quickly, we're looking at creating events in the future that like-minded souls can come to, collaborate with us and other professionals that will be able to deliver something that will help individuals to grow this movement. And these events will be done because you've seen me. I'm 9 years on. Nothing's going to stop this for us, and we're going to grow.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm just thought I'd let you know about the events.
Andy, thank you very much for sharing. Raphael mentioned it as well. The universe has been mentioned. Momentum has been mentioned. I can feel it turning. I've tuned. Once you come out of dissociation and disconnection, and you connect with yourself and others, you start to feel things, not just think about them or see them. You feel movement, and there is movement right now. So there is more scandals broken in the last 5 or 6 years than there were in 30 years before that.
Yeah.
People are
Exactly.
getting less tolerant of this and of institutional cover-up and lies and nonsense. So yeah, keep talking out there, finding support.
I've been sat back, Chris, watching it from the universe, like literally watching it tick by tick by tick by tick, as it's a tidal wave we have to get over. And sometimes the waves will hit us and crash us down, but we get back up again, and those waves are calming down now.
Yeah,
and there's some balance and harmony being brought to this world. Instead of it being light and dark, there's a turn, and it's on a twist, and it's taking time, but we're still here to do it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We are. It's beautiful, beautiful word. Sorry, Raphael, say it again.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, lovely.
No, it's got a little light there. There's a little dim light there. But it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I can see it. It's got it. It has to. It's got to do it. It's got to.
Yeah, it is, and the movement is there, and you men have been an important part of that. We're coming to the end of our time today, but I just want to thank the project Inside the Boys Club, which is Dr. Marius Janchauskas, Dr. Naomi Murphy, and everyone at Saint Seven Studio. To you men, so Daniel, Andy, Raphael, Toby, and to all those out there who are listening who can connect with this, who may have experienced anything as a young person, who knows people who have been through sexual abuse. With the conversation is there. It's starting to happen. There will be great events. We'll put information in the show notes as well of how you can connect to the project. And it's very much a story of hope and healing and connection. So we'll say goodbye for today to these guys. Thank you for your years of work, decades of work, of coming forward and starting to open up this conversation. So it's been the Seen and Heard podcast conversational series. It's been a powerful conversation with, Thanks, Raphael.
I just want to say something. I'm getting silenced with my book. There's a lot of that happening now. With, what do you call it? Freedom of speech. This is what we've got to do as well. Everywhere we go, if we speak out, there's a lot of people trying to silence us. And this is what that's got to stop. That has to stop. Can I just mention my book, Chris? That's my book, Stealing Lives. That's me on the front.
Yeah.
So I like to get that out because, as I said, I'm getting silenced. It's on Amazon. If anybody wants to purchase it, you can get it on Amazon. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, boys. Thank you very much. And I tell you what, there's such a great bunch of boys. We've got Naomi and Maurice and I'm so privileged and so thankful that I've got the opportunity to get my voice out, because that's what I want to do. Actually, what we all want to do. We all want to bring awareness out and stop this carry on, stop it.
Yeah.
And all survivors, we're not alone.
Yeah,
we're not alone. None of us are alone.
Not alone. No. Let me just sign off for everyone today. Thank you, Raphael. In the show notes, there will be all the books.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, Andy, Toby, Daniel.
Yeah, cheers, Raphael. It's been the Seen and Heard podcast. We've had a chance to be Seen and Heard today.
Off with a smile.
Let's finish with a smile. So thank you, everyone, for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Bye. Bye-bye.